Hello and welcome to this webinar on coaching your child to get organized using the Studyo School Planner. My name is Renaud Boisjoli. I'm one of the co-founders of Studyo, and today I'm happy to give you some tips and tricks on how to get your child better organized. Now, getting organized is really something that your child has to decide to do at some point, and we're going to try to get them there. So here's a little bit of an overview of what we're going to go through in this presentation. First of all, I'll give you a quick overview of the planner itself so you understand what we're talking about. Then we'll show you quickly how to start the parent account process. And then we'll show you how students actually learn to get organized. What are the different tools they have access to learn how to use their planner and how to be better organized. So you can use those same tricks. And then our last section will be about coaching your child using Studyo and what you can do to encourage them to build better habits and become better organized. All right, let's go. At any point after this presentation, of course, you can reach out for support. If you just email support@studyo.co, you'll be well received by our technical support team, but we'll also be able to answer some questions on how to coach your child. Of course, you can also use the built-in options in the planner itself when you log into your account or your child's account. Going to the top right in the account menu, there's an item to get some support. So don't hesitate to use those. Of course, your school is in a better position to answer any questions that have to do with how the school is using Studyo and if there are any specificities to accessing information or if classes are wrong or those kinds of questions, of course. Great. Let's continue. Now, you'll have access to the slides from this presentation where you can actually watch some equivalent videos of some of the things we'll be doing here. Some of them are a little more detailed or more specific to a task. Sometimes you'll just want to watch one segment, so you'll have access to that. And of course, you can share this whole video as well. Let's get started. First thing we'll do is a quick demonstration of what the Studyo platform does so that you understand what we're talking about. Now, when you do need to connect to the planner, you need to know where to find it. And there's two ways you can do this. First of all, you can actually go to the website, and this is the app that your child will be using most of the time. So just go to Studyo, studyo.app. We call it Studyo. You can say Studyo if you prefer, but just so you know, it's the word study with an O .app with the usual HTTP things before. Now you can also search for the Studyo app on the iOS and Google Play stores. All the data is the same on both systems, and your child will be able to use all of these versions. Now, the best version to use to really plan your work is either the web version or the iPad version, or using the web version on an Android tablet, for example, where you have more space to work with. But, for quick consulting and, marking things as done, all the versions will work fine. Whichever way your child decides to connect to their planner, they will see the same type of information. Now, they'll probably log in using their Google account, and their school team will actually show them how to do that. But, that's a typical way of doing this. The first thing they'll see is the daily view. Let me show you a little bit what's going on here. First of all, of course, you've got all the day information. So the date, the day of the week, etc., etc. You'll see perhaps a number or a letter here. This depends on the type of schedule in your school. It might be like a day 1, day 2 kind of a scenario, or rotating days, or day A, day B. There's all sorts of things, and you know what your school's schedule is like, and that's what will show up here. Notice there are special days and special icons sometimes that can represent things that your child needs to be aware of. It could be fun things like events, it could be an exam day, or it could be a holiday or a PD day, or anything that affects their schedule. So those are important, and you'll see them all throughout the application. Your child's name should appear on the top, so that's very useful. And this is what we call the account menu, where you can get some extra help. Now, there are other things happening in all these things, but we'll get into those a little bit later. You'll notice the day appears down here. You can see all the timetable with all the different classes. this child has. You can see the days broken down in different period, letters or numbers, depending on your school schedule once again. And then you'll see the day also has extra periods like AM and PM and evening, which are useful for children to enter more information that they need. Now that's the one thing that's very specific about the planner. It's for the student to use. So they can manipulate tasks that are posted to them here from Google Classroom, but in your school, it could be Canvas or Blackboard or Schoology or any of the other platforms that are there. It all works the same. All of that will appear in their different classes, but they can also enter their own. So let's take a quick look as to what they can do with these. I don't want to go too much in depth. Tasks that appear here should be marked as done. We'll take a look about that a little later. You know, it's good to mark things as done when you complete them. We'll see how that happens. But you can also go back to the original task. So for example, if you click on a task here, you will see a link that says view in and then the name of the platform it's from. So view in Canvas, view in Google Classroom, view in Schoology, whichever the platform. And clicking this will bring you there. So it's a great way to find exactly where things are. Notice as well that there's these special icons here. They're pale gray and they have a pointy end. These are not due today. These are announced today. They just appeared in the planner today. So that's important to make a distinction there. Things that are dark are due, so you need to be aware of that. Things that are gray just are starting now. We'll get back to some other areas here on how to enter information and such. We're just going to go throughout the first little introduction. You have different views at the bottom. A weekly view that shows you as much information as we can in a little bit of a crowded space here. There are some options like the size of the periods and whether or not you're showing weekends, which can help. And then you can navigate, of course, from week to week to see what's upcoming. A monthly view shows you the different tasks that are available. You can filter them if your child requires, extra attention on a specific subject or subject matter. They can highlight that one only, or, if they want to see everything together, all of the tasks will appear based on those filters. A yearly view. As a parent, you'll appreciate the fact that you can see the whole school schedule in one place. Holidays, PD days, end of terms, parent-teacher meetings, everything can be entered here, and your school has worked with the Studyo team to make sure this is organized in a way that makes sense for everyone. And finally, there's the tasks view, and this is one we'll be using for a few of our examples later on, but it really is a great way to kind of understand everything that's on a student's plate. All the subjects that there's something to keep in mind, all the days of the year, and any task that is entered is displayed from the moment it's announced by teachers all the way till when it's due. So this really gives students a great visual as to how much time they have to accomplish things. But it also shows how things are layered one on top of the other so that they can see they have many things to think about and then take decisions on, well, what they need to postpone a little bit or start right now. But what I want to show you in this specific video is really the next step, which is down here. These are the tasks that are pre-posted in Studyo for your child to learn about the Studyo Planner itself and how to get organized. And if you notice when you click on them, there's a description and there are specific things they need to do. And to help them accomplish these things, there's a video link right there. Now we'll link to those videos in the presentation itself, but you can see how they're spread out in the first few weeks of the school year so that your child can learn step by step, not only how to do things in their planner, like personalize it and change colors and such, but also concepts such as setting SMART goals or breaking down tasks into smaller steps. All things that we'll cover a little bit in this presentation as well. Finally, in this video, I want to show you our next step, which is how do you get a parent account on this platform, right? This is your child's planner. You don't want to log in with their credentials. That's for them to use. You know, there's a risk there of doing something that you're not supposed to as a parent, and you have to let your child do these things. So how do I get my account? Well, it all starts with this menu up here. So the account menu allows you to do things such as adjusting settings and such and getting help. But also it allows you to share your planner. So if your child goes here, they can click on this and they can invite their parent. And this is by entering your email. So, you know, they enter your email and you get an email at the other end that says, hey, your child has invited you. Make sure they enter your email without making any spelling mistakes. But if they do, don't worry, they can just do it again. Just re-enter your email another time. And they can invite as many parents and guardians as they want, or as you want. So, you know, spouses and parents and different households and tutors can all be invited to this calendar. And the people that are registered will receive a weekly report that shows all the students' tasks that are upcoming for the next 10 days, including their schedule and any special days that are upcoming. There's also an option to share the calendar, which is sharing the same planner but in a form of a standard calendar that you can add to your Google Calendar or Outlook Calendar or Apple Calendars as an extra calendar. And it'll show all the schedule and it'll show all the classes that your child has on any given day. Very useful. And you can also include free periods if you want to know when all the block times are on any given day, even if there's no classes going on. So you'll see the AM period and the PM and the evening period appear there as well. So that's a quick trick. So, you know, when you get home, you can do that with your child, have them log in and invite you as a parent. And that's the first quick overview. Let's move on to the presentation now. So let's take a look at the best thing you can do to help your child with their planner, and that is reminding them to check it. Now, everything having to do with organization is all about building habits. Building habits is really the best thing you can do to help your child here with organization. So how do you build habits? Well, unfortunately, there's not 1,000 ways to do this. It's all about repetition, and there is effort required. And it does take some time to get into any kind of habit. You need to understand a little bit how your child works. What's the best way to get them to build a habit? Is it a moment in time that is more appropriate for them to check their planner? Is it simple verbal reminders are enough with your child, or do they need like a visual reminder? Sometimes it's a post-it note, sometimes it's a list that they have, things that they need to do when they come back from school. Notifications, perhaps, if they have a device that has notifications, just a reminder to check their planner. All of these things can work, and you know your child best, especially if your child has any kind of struggle like ADHD or other types of struggles, like executive functioning skills struggles. You know them best. You know, there are tons of tricks to help them building those habits, but it is an effort, right? So you have to be on top of that a little bit. Now, what you need to do when you do that is do it in a more specific way. It's not just about have you checked your planner, it's things like checking their tasks view with them. Now, we saw the task view a little bit before. We're going to go through some specific tricks with that view, but it's really about looking at things a little bit long term. You know, it's not just about do you have anything for tomorrow, but let's take a look at everything in your planner and take some decision on each task. And there's a process for that. We call it do it, work on it, or set next steps. It's really very simple. Every task that's listed today, you either finish it if it's short term or short to do, you work on it, that's the other alternative, or you basically set it for next steps. So maybe that's pushing it to tomorrow or a few days down the road. It's okay actually to push something further. That's part of planning. You can't do everything every day, especially with a big workload. Sometimes it's hard to do everything and touch every single task every day. So it's good to define a time later to work on something and give more time to another task that is either difficult or that is, more short term, or, anything that you need to finish first. And sometimes just for the attention that you need to work on specific types of things, you need all of your attention, and you can't split your brain into multiple pieces. So that's good. So you can encourage students to do that and praise them for taking any action on any task. Now, there's a reason for all this, and it's based on science. The research says that self-imposed deadlines are effective in improving your task performance. And what that means, in other words, is that if you set a next step for a task, it improves your chances of actually doing it at that time. It means that if I decide tomorrow is when I'll be, cleaning up my room, well, and I write that somewhere, well, when the time comes and I get a reminder, I'll feel kind of guilty if I don't. It kind of pressures me into doing it. And that's what the research from Dan Ariely from the MIT has said. And the conclusion was that these deadlines that you impose to yourself are actually best at helping you move forward. So let's take a quick look at the tasks view and how you can help your child every day just by looking at it and taking decisions. Back into tasks view, let's take a look at how it works and how you can help your child. So we mentioned the fact that all the different subjects appear and the dates are there and the tasks appear, but what can your child do with all this that will actually help them move forward? Well, we'll use the today list on the right here. And what this list is showing us is any task that is not complete yet and that was either announced in the past or today and is due in the future or today. That means that anything that crosses today basically is shown here. So we see a few things in here. First thing here, there's an algebra worksheet. So basically this was due today. And when you think about it, it should have been done before today, typically, unless, there was some time at school to finish this up. It would have been good to mark this as done a little bit earlier in the process, right? And you can see your child has, had some days to do this. So when they do finish something, get them to mark it as done completely right now when they're done doing it. And to do that, they can double click the icon here or the one up here, or click once and complete, but we'll double click right there. Now notice it didn't go away. It's not going to go away until it's, done in the past, let's say. But it stays here just for reference in case there's something to hand in. Now, handing in is different from completing, and it's important that with your child, you help them mark things as done as they go, not just when they're handing it in or after the fact, a few days later, saying, oh, I've done all this. It's important to do it as they go, and you'll see why in a second. I had this color wheel project show up here again this morning, and that was done, so I'll mark this as done too. And we'll see that students can enter personal tasks, so that's one that has been done as well. I'll just mark it as done for now. We'll talk about entering tasks later. Great. And one of the reasons why we mark things as done is that it exposes the next most important task. If you have a whole series of late tasks, this is hidden and it doesn't show up. So this is an important thing that gets uncovered. And so you can see a task over time, and you can see this one is the next one that's due. So great thing that it's brought to the student's attention here. So you can, have your child take decisions on all these tasks. So for example, this oral on national parks, have they moved their work along today? Have they thought about it? And the thought process here could be, well, yes, I have worked on this. Or it could be, no, I've not worked on this yet. So this is a good reminder to do so. Or I can't work on this right now. I'm going to move that to tomorrow. Now, seeing this is in a week and that there's a few things interfering with the work here, I would expect the child to realize that maybe now is the best time to work on this a little bit more. So they do work on it and then push this forward to the next day. Now, to push a task forward, you take the left icon right here and you double click on that one instead of the due date. And this will shift it to the next day. By doing that, it goes away from the today list. Great, I've taken a decision on this, I've worked on it, and then I decided I will continue tomorrow. And then I can do the same. This algebra exam that's coming up, it's this one down here. It's due a little further, so maybe I can look at this tomorrow, and I'll double click on this to move it to tomorrow. I took a decision right there. That's good. And you want to encourage your child to do this and to, see this as a success. Taking that decision is a success in itself. Here's a book reflection, and we'll get back to it later. But for now, I'm just looking at taking decisions here. And maybe we don't need to work on this for some time. So instead of just shifting it to tomorrow by double clicking the left icon here, notice it shifts the icon, but it preserves the announcement icon so you know when this appeared in the planner. You can do this multiple times. You can double click and double click and double click until you're satisfied that you'll have both enough time to finish this and it won't interfere with something else that you're stressed about, like this oral presentation that's coming up, right? So this is a longer term planning step. If a child gets to that level, really praise them about that, and that's a great thing to do. Even though they don't work on it now, they're thinking about when they should start this. And even if it's closer to the due date than you'd like, you can let them make some mistakes, right? And they'll learn from them. The next time around, you might remind them, what did you do last time? Did you start right away? Was it as short as you thought? Or was it longer than you thought? Should you give yourself more time this time? All of those are valid. And then finally, you'll see that this photosynthesis test, is a long-term exam. Again, is this something you want to do right now or, push to tomorrow? We'll look at what these little dots are a little bit later, but so don't worry about that. So, I'll just take a decision here and shift this to tomorrow, and that's it. So I've cleared my task list. Now, that's the whole idea here. Go through each task, mark what's done as done, complete things that are complete, and then shift things to the next step that you want and decide for all of the others until you've cleared your list. So if every day your child gets to a point where they're doing this and they're going into their planner and marking things as done, this is great. You've made strides here. So obviously won't necessarily be easy right away for every kid, but definitely you've got your work cut out for you in how to do tracking every day to help your child get organized. Let's return a little bit on the subject of marking tasks as done. That is really the second thing you can do to help your child become better organized. The first one is to remind them to use their planner and track them in doing that and what that means. The second one is about reminding them to mark things as done. And it's all part of the same process, really. Just to clarify, this is different from handing work in. So if your child finds this redundant, it's I'm already handing it in, I'm marking it done on the whatever platform we're using at school. Why do I need to mark this as done in my planner? And it might not seem apparent, but the first thing it does is it helps build that habit. Every time you see a task that you're finished with, complete it, mark it as done. And that will become a habit over time. And that's something that the school can actually track in the students and see if they're getting organized over time. So that's great. You'll see it in your parent report every Friday. If there are any tasks that have not been marked as done and should have, they'll appear there. And you can always go to the planner in real time, as we'll see with the parent account. So when a task is finished, mark it as done. If you're finished studying for your exam, mark it as completed. You're feeling confident that for your exam that's in 2 days, mark it as done now so that it doesn't come up on your planner all the time, right? You read an announcement that's coming up in the planner, just mark it as done. All of these things need to be done. So this is really very important, and it really exposes the next most important thing that the students will see in their planner. The next important tool you can use to help your child build their organizational skills. And it really helps at the metacognitive level, which is a big factor for success, is to help your child ask themselves some questions about tasks that seem more daunting or discouraging or big, and they don't know how to start them, and they're afraid of them, and maybe they're stressed about them. And that's true of kids that have organization difficulties, but it's also true of performing children as well. They see these things and sometimes they're overwhelmed. And this is a great way for everybody to lower their stress levels. So think about the task. What are the parts of this? What will I need to go through to finish this? I'm sure there are different parts to this, right? How do you break it down into smaller things that I can handle one after the other in a sequence, as opposed to seeing it all as a big mountain? Make sure that the first step there is a small step, a short one to do, and it's simple to do. It might be reread your notes, highlight important parts of your notes, those kinds of things. It might just be bring all of your materials together, do some research on something. It's not so hard to find 3 articles on a subject or something like that. That doesn't require a lot of effort, a lot of thinking, a lot of creating. It might be simpler as a first step. It might be the logical first step as well, and that's good. We'll see how to add these steps in the task itself. If you have a task in the planner, you can add these steps. Then you have to help your child think about how many days they'll need to accomplish these steps. And then you can actually help them put in dates as milestones to finish the smaller steps that they gave themselves. All this will be illustrated in the following demonstration. So here is how you handle steps in the Studyo Planner. And this is something your child will learn through the built-in steps, but it's good that you understand how this can be useful. So in the task view is the best place to see if any steps have been defined. And you can see there are some steps right here for some of these tasks. And I'll show you how you add them to these tasks. So let's say I have this book reflection that we saw before that's announced today and due on the 26th. Well, if you click anywhere on the timeline or on the task, you will see the details of the task coming in from the learning management system. Now, students can edit the task. And when they do, by the way, they can add their own notes, but down here, they can add steps specifically. So have this reflection with them. Okay, let's think of how this can be broken down. And, read my note, my book, might be 1 because it's this book reflection, but that might not be, that seems like a big first step if you haven't done that before. So maybe it's more read chapter 1 of the book. And then you can add another, maybe it has 3 chapters. Okay, so read chapter 2, and then, yeah, you can, can't spell. And then just press return, and then scroll and read chapter 3, etc., etc. So that's the first thing. It's just about entering the steps. How do you break it down so that it is, clearer what I need to do? And maybe this first chapter is a small chapter, right? That might be one thing. So, then the content of these steps is defined by what we said just before on the types of things. So you add those steps, and then you can specifically set dates for these things. And when you click on the date picker, you'll see the current date is highlighted in red, and you can see any, upcoming dates and holidays and weekends. And you can set next steps on weekends, right? Of course, they're going to be working on these things outside of school. So, so I'll read my chapter 1 by tomorrow, maybe. Well, is that realistic? Between now and tomorrow, do you have time to read 35 pages of a chapter? Maybe not. Maybe you need to give yourself until Saturday, right? Something like that. Now, for some kids, it might require breaking it down into pages. But again, this is a reflection, so it's not about reading the book so much as writing what goes with it. But these are all examples, and I'm sure you'll apply the right examples to the right situation. So let's give this a couple of more dates just so we see the result. And when I save, we notice that the dots have appeared at those dates that are milestones. And I can just click and go down, and I can see the steps that are there. And I can see them on the right in the today list as well. And you can use this to track things so that students can say, okay, I'm done reading chapter 1. Well, marking things is as important in the steps. Did you finish it? Yes. Click on it. And what happens is that that step goes away, the dot goes away, and then you know that you've progressed and your next step is further down, and then you can plan for that one, etc., etc. So again, there are different ways to break down steps. Find some that work better for different types of steps, tasks, studying for an exam, writing a document, those such things. So that's how you do it. So the next thing you can do to help your child get organized is encourage them to enter tasks in their planner themselves. Don't just rely on what the teachers are posting on the portal or on Google Classroom or whichever tool they use. Help your child enter things themselves as well, because sometimes, there are things that are announced in class that are not in those tools, and your child needs to know about them. But also there are things that are personal, that are sports related, that are just personal to your child, that are great to put in their planner, and it'll encourage them to use it. The more they use the planner for things that are for themselves and fun, the more they will use it for everything. So chores, well, those are not fun, but maybe they like to see how many times they take out the garbage and can see, they've done it twice, and then they're going to get their allowance or whatever system you use. If you have family activities and outings, you want to put those in there. It'll help them plan their schoolwork as well, and have them enter things they like. Some students like to enter binge nights, or when a new TV series comes out so that they won't miss it. Well, they want to put that in their planner as well. So if they practice an instrument, if they have a friend's birthday, all of those things are great to have in their planner, and they can put it in there, and it really becomes their planner. So here's how they can do that. So to enter a task in the planner is pretty simple. Now, these school-related tasks all appear there automatically, so your child doesn't have to do them. But if they do want to enter something, either before school or after school, they can do it themselves. So let's say this Friday is when their new show is coming out. And in the evening, they want to watch that show and watch all of the episodes. So they can go to that date, and they can basically click on the time where they want to add something. Now, if this was school related, they could do that as well. I can enter my own science task due Friday and enter my own homework. But if I click outside of a class, I can see I'm creating a task here, and I can pick a bunch of icons here. I want to do something personal, or maybe I like to use one of the special icons like movie, because I want to watch this TV show. So watch my show, and it starts at 7:30 or whatever. Now, nowadays you can start when you want, right? It shows up at a certain time. And really, maybe they want to make this private. They don't want anybody to see their planner, so you won't see it if it's there privately, though. Watch out. But some things are private. And then one thing that's important is that if they enter something on a due date, right now it's announced today. They don't really need to know it's announced today. So what they can do is click on the announcement date and set it to the same date as the task on Friday. So the task will only appear on that specific day. And that's it. They save, and then the task is there. And that's it. When it's gone by, they can double click on it to mark themselves that they've seen it and done it. Finally, we'll end on this note. Do use Studyo for coaching your child. Try not to use it as a way to catch them in the wrong. Try to keep a positive approach to the planner. this will help them actually use it. If you start observing what they do or monitoring what they do or need to do and catch them when they don't, or use it in that kind of a way, they'll stop using the planner itself. They don't want to be spied on, of course. If they see it as a positive way for you to help them and coach them and come to the right decisions and be successful, they'll appreciate the help probably more. And therefore, you can build that relationship and look at it as a way to help them cope with everything and take good decisions. And, the more you allow them to take decisions and make their own mistakes there, the more they'll use the planner and discover better ways to use it on their own. Use positive reinforcement. Oh, did you check your planner today? Yes. Hey, great, fabulous. Not so much as did you do this or do you have this or that, as just, oh, you opened it. That's great, right? That's a simple thing. Did you mark things that needed to be done? Yeah, you thought about it. Fantastic, right? Congratulate them if you see that they've broken down large tasks. When you have access to the planner, and you've opened your planner and you get the report, you can see that. You can see if they've broken down tasks and if they plan for the future and all that. Recognize that. Hey, I see you broke down your study time for your exam in 5 chapters. That's great. Well, good thinking. Really good job there. And anytime they take any kind of action, you've postponed this for next Friday as opposed to doing it now. I'm sure you have a good reason there. Congrats on taking decisions. That's good. So all of these things will help your child improve their will to use their planner, which is, of course, a little bit tricky. So combining this with all the other tips that we gave you, you should definitely be helping your child along to being better organized for this school year. And remember, if you have any needs or need any help, you can always reach out for support. Reach out to the school if it's school related, but reach out to our team if it's, technology related. Great. So that's it for today. Thanks for being here, and I hope this has been very useful to you.